Charles James Kirk, October 14, 1993, September 10, 2025, was an American political activist, author, and media personality. He co-founded the organization Turning Point USA, TPUSA, in 2012 and was its executive director. He was the chief executive officer of Turning Point Action, TP Action, and a member of the Council for National Policy, CNP. In his later years, he was one of the most prominent voices of the populist MAGA movement and exemplified the growth of Christian nationalism in the Republican Party. Kirk was born and raised in the Chicago suburbs of Arlington Heights and Prospect Heights, Illinois. In high school, Kirk actively engaged in politics, supporting Republican candidate Mark Kirk, no relation, and his U.S. Senate campaign. He briefly attended Harper College before dropping out to pursue political activism full-time, influenced by Tea Party member Bill Montgomery. In 2012, Kirk founded TPUSA, a conservative student organization that quickly grew with backing from donors like Foster Friess. Kirk expanded the organization's influence through initiatives such as the Professor Watch List and School Board Watch List, which critics have said sought to fire or silence professors and educators through targeted harassment campaigns for sharing opinions opposed by Turning Point. In 2019, Kirk founded Turning Point Action, a political advocacy arm, and later, with Pentecostal pastor Rob McCoy, formed Turning Point Faith, aimed at mobilizing religious communities on conservative issues. Kirk hosted The Charlie Kirk Show, a conservative talk radio program. A key ally of Donald Trump, Kirk promoted far-right and Trump-aligned causes. He espoused a variety of controversial views, especially regarding his opposition to gun control, abortion, and LGBTQ rights. His criticism of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Martin Luther King Jr., and his promotion of Christian nationalism, COVID-19 misinformation, the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and false claims of electoral fraud in 2020. On September 10, 2025, Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at a TPUSA public debate event on the campus of Utah Valley University as part of his American Comeback Tour at his signature Prove Me Wrong table. Charles James Kirk was born on October 14, 1993, in the Chicago suburb of Arlington Heights, Illinois, and raised in nearby Prospect Heights. His mother is a mental health counselor, and his father is an architect. Kirk was a member of the Boy Scouts of America and earned the rank of Eagle Scout. In 2010, during his junior year at Wheeling High School, he volunteered for the successful U.S. Senate campaign of Illinois Republican Mark Kirk, no relation. In his senior year, Kirk created a campaign to reverse a price increase for cookies at his school. He also wrote an essay for Breitbart News alleging liberal bias in high school textbooks, which led to an appearance on Fox Business. Kirk attended Harper College near Chicago before completing a degree or certificate. At a speaking engagement at Benedictine University's Youth Empowerment Day, Kirk met Bill Montgomery, a retiree more than 50 years his senior, who was then a Tea Party-backed legislative candidate. Montgomery encouraged Kirk to engage in political activism full-time. He subsequently founded Turning Point USA, TPUSA, a grassroots organization to rival liberal groups such as MoveOn.org. At the 2012 Republican National Convention, Kirk met Foster Friess, a prominent Republican donor, and persuaded him to finance the organization. Kirk was CEO chief fundraiser, and the public face of Turning Point USA from its founding to his death in 2025. He co-founded the organization in 2012 at 18 years of age. According to the New York Times, he turned the organization into a well-funded media operation, backed by conservative mega-donors like the Wyoming businessman Foster Friess. TPUSA's activities include publication of the Professor Watch List and the School Board Watch List. Critics of these watch lists say that they threaten academic freedom and have led to the targeted harassment of academics. In 2019, the Professor Watch List was briefly suspended by its web host. In 2020, ProPublica investigated the finances of TPUSA and found that the organization made misleading financial claims, that the audits were not done by an independent auditor, and that the leaders had enriched themselves while advocating for Trump. ProPublica also reported that Kirk's salary from TPUSA had increased from $27,000 to nearly $300,000, and that he had bought an $855,000 condo in Longboat Key, Florida. In 2020, Turning Point USA had $39.2 million in revenues. Kirk earned a salary of more than $325,000 from TPUSA and related organizations. In 2021, TPUSA announced an online academy targeted toward students in schools, poisoning our youth with anti-American ideas. Turning Point Academy was intended to cater to families seeking an America First education. Arizona education firm Strong Mind initially partnered with TPUSA with plans to open the academy by the fall of 2022 and assessed its potential to generate over $40 million in gross revenue at full capacity, 10,000 students. The partnership ended after Strong Mind received backlash from its own employees and key subcontractor Freedom Learning Group, which prepared course content for the academy, also backed out. In May 2019, it was reported that Kirk was preparing to launch Turning Point Action, a 501c4 entity designed to target Democrats. In July 2019, Kirk announced that Turning Point Action had acquired Students for Trump, along with all associated media assets. He became chairman and launched a campaign to recruit 1 million students for the 2020 Trump re-election campaign. The unsuccessful effort led to TPUSA and the Trump campaign blaming each other for an overall decline in youth support for Trump. In December 2022, Kirk announced the Mount Vernon Project, an initiative by Turning Point Action to remove members from the Republican National Committee who were not grassroots conservatives. On January the 5th, 2021, the day before the Washington, D.C. protest that led to the January 6th United States Capitol attack, Kirk wrote on Twitter that Turning Point Action and Students for Trump were sending more than 80 buses of patriots to D.C. to fight for this president. A spokesman for Turning Point said that the groups ended up sending 7 buses, not 80, with 350 students. In the lead-up to the storming, Kirk said he was getting 500 emails a minute calling for a civil war. Publix heiress Julie Fancelli gave Kirk's organizations $1.25 million to fund the buses to the January 6th event. Kirk also paid $60,000 for Kimberly Guilfoyle to speak at the Trump rally. Afterward, Kirk said the violent acts at the Capitol were not an insurrection and did not represent mainstream Trump supporters. appearing before the United States House Select Committee on the January 6th attack in December 2022, Kirk pleaded the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. His team provided the committee with 8,000 pages of records in response to its requests. In another closed-door meeting of the House January 6th committee, Ali Alexander blamed Kirk and Turning Point USA for financing the travel of demonstrators to the Stop the Steal rally. Andrew Colvett, a Turning Point USA spokesperson, denied that Kirk advocated for violence and gave a statement saying Charlie wants to save America with words, persuasion, courage, and common sense. The left is desperate to conjure up some Christian boogeyman that simply doesn't exist. We're telling churches, either get involved and have a say in the direction of your country, or you'll leave a void that someone else who doesn't share your values will fill. In November 2019, Kirk and Jerry Falwell Jr. co-founded the Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty, a right-wing think tank funded, owned, and housed by Liberty University. Falkirk was a portmanteau of Falwell and Kirk. Fellows included Antonia Okafor, Director of Outreach for Gun Owners of America, Sebastian Gorka, former Deputy Assistant to President Trump, and Jenna Ellis, a senior legal counselor for Trump. In 2020, the Falkirk Center spent at least $50,000 on political Facebook advertisements promoting Trump and Republican candidates. Students and alumni raised objections about the organization's aggressive political tone, which they considered to be inconsistent with the university's mission. Falwell resigned as president of Liberty University in August 2020, and the university did not renew Kirk's one-year contract in late 2020. In 2021, the university renamed the organization Standing for Freedom Center. After Liberty University did not renew Kirk's contract with the Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty in 2021, Charlie Kirk and Rob McCoy founded Turning Point Faith, an organization that encouraged pastors and other church leaders to be active in local and national political issues. Its activities include faith-based voter drives and inculcating TPUSA's core values. According to TPUSA's 2021 Investor Prospectus, the program, with a budget of $6.4 million, will address America's crumbling religious foundation by engaging thousands of pastors nationwide in order to breathe renewed civic engagement into our churches. From October 2020 until his death, Kirk hosted a daily 3-hour radio talk show called The Charlie Kirk Show on Salem Media's The Answer radio channel. According to internal data from Turning Point USA, Kirk's podcast was being downloaded between 500,000 and 750,000 times each day in 2024. As of December 7th, 2021, the Charlie Kirk Show podcast was ranked as the 21st most popular podcast on Apple Podcasts. Kirk's Turning Point Live was a 3-hour streaming talk show aimed at Generation Z. Turning Point USA's monthly online average grew to 111,000 unique visitors in 2021. A February 2023 Brookings Institution study found Kirk's podcast contained the second highest proportion of false, misleading, and unsubstantiated statements among 36,603 episodes, produced by 79 prominent political podcasters. In a 2022 episode of his podcast, Kirk called for a patriot to bail out of jail the man who broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and attacked her husband with a hammer. Also, in 2022, journalist Barry Weiss released a report of internal Twitter documents dubbed the Twitter Files, which alleged that Twitter was censoring conservative personalities on the social media platform. Weiss posted screenshots of Twitter tools that moderators could use to limit the reach of posts and accounts. According to Rolling Stone magazine, Kirk's Twitter account was flagged under Do Not Amplify, which meant algorithms would not highlight tweets coming from those accounts. In April 2024, Kirk created a TikTok account after previously expressing skepticism of the social media platform. Kirk's account gained popularity on the platform after he posted numerous videos of him talking to college students during his campus tours, with some videos garnering as many as 50 million views. In February 2025, Kirk signed with Trinity Broadcasting Network to host a weekday talk show, Charlie Kirk Today. Kirk's outspoken political activism received criticism and controversy. The New York Times described Charlie Kirk as symbolizing hope for the Christian right. His rhetoric was described as divisive, racist, xenophobic, and extreme by groups that studied hate speech, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Kirk disagreed with critics that he created a toxic environment online, arguing that disagreement is a healthy part of our systems. Kirk was the William F. Buckley Jr. Council member of the Council for National Policy, CNP, a group that has served for decades as a hub for a nationwide network of conservative activists and the donors who support them. According to the CNP's September 2020 membership directory leaked in February 2021, he was a spokesperson for CNP Action, the political arm of the CNP. In March 2025, President Trump appointed Kirk to the United States Air Force Academy Board of Visitors. Kirk's last political rally had taken place in Kentucky, where he appeared alongside Senate candidate Nate Morey, Republican, and pro-Trump activism Kirk. With Donald Trump at a rally in 2021, Kirk addressed the 2016 Republican National Convention. In an interview with Wired magazine during the convention, Kirk said that while he was not the world's biggest Donald Trump fan, he would vote for him, and that Trump's candidacy made Turning Point's mission more difficult. Kirk flipped to supporting Trump at the 2016 Republican National Convention and spent the remainder of the campaign assisting with travel and media arrangements for Donald Trump Jr. In October 2016, Kirk participated in a Fox News event along with Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Lara Trump that had a pro-Donald Trump tone. In July 2019, Kirk became chairman of Students for Trump, which had been acquired by Turning Point Action, and launched a campaign to recruit 1 million students for the 2020 Trump re-election campaign. The unsuccessful effort led to TPUSA and the Trump campaign blaming each other for an overall decline in youth support for Trump. In April 2020, Matthew Rosenberg and Katie Rogers wrote in the New York Times that Kirk walks the line between mainstream conservative opinion and outright disinformation, and that with a powerful ally in the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., Mr. Kirk both amplifies the president's message and helps shape it. On March 3rd, 2020, Kirk released his book, The MAGA Doctrine, a manifesto for the Make America Great Again movement, in which he said that the Republican Party is, in some sense, no longer a conservative party, no longer the party of Reagan, but instead a Trump-remade populist party. At an August 2020 meeting of the Council for National Policy, Kirk said, "Democrats have done a really foolish thing by shutting down all these campuses. It's going to remove ballot harvesting opportunities and all their voter fraud that they usually do on college campuses. So they're actually removing 500,000 votes off the table. So please keep the campuses closed. It's a great thing. Whatever." In December 2022, Kirk urged the Republican National Committee to listen to their grassroots voters. Kirk stated that, if ignored, we will have the most stunted and muted Republican Party in the history of the conservative movement, the likes of which we haven't seen in generations. Kirk was an early investor in 1789 Capital, which invests in conservative MAGA businesses. Trump Jr. joined 1789 Capital in November 2024, after Trump won the 2024 election. Prior to the 2024 U.S. presidential election, Kirk visited approximately 25 college campuses, marketed as the "You're Being Brainwashed" tour. His aim was to stir up more Gen Z voter turnout, and he would engage and debate with students on many different relevant topics. According to Turning Point Action, the tour produced around 2 billion viral views on social media. The tour has been praised as having a critical role in helping Donald Trump's election. Kirk aided the president-elect in choosing leadership positions for his administration, including cabinet positions. On July 15, 2025, Kirk conducted extensive interviews about Jeffrey Epstein on his podcast and pressured Trump's administration to release more information. By then, Kirk was one of the most prominent figures in the populist MAGA movement and often described as the face of the movement. According to Forbes, Kirk was known for his repudiation of liberal college education and embrace of pro-Trump conspiracy theories. Kirk promoted the cultural Marxism conspiracy theory and described universities as islands of totalitarianism. In a 2015 speech at the Liberty Forum of Silicon Valley, Kirk stated that he had applied for nomination to the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York, and was not accepted. He said that the slot he considered his went to a far less qualified candidate of a different gender and a different persuasion, whose test scores he claimed he knew. He told The New Yorker in 2017 that he was being sarcastic when he said it. He told the Chicago Tribune in 2018 that he was just repeating something he'd been told. While at a New Hampshire Turning Point event featuring Rand Paul in October 2019, he claimed that he never said it. In July 2018, Kirk falsely claimed on social media that Justice Department statistics showed an increase in human trafficking arrests from 1,952 in the year 2016 to 6,087 in the first half of 2018. He deleted the tweet without an explanation the next day, after a fact checker had pointed out that the false 2018 number had originated on the conspiracy site 8chan. In December 2018, Kirk falsely claimed that protesters in the French Yellow Vests movement chanted, "We want Trump." These false claims were later repeated by President Trump himself. Kirk spread falsehoods about voter fraud as well as the COVID-19 pandemic. In defending the Trump administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Kirk falsely stated that during the H1N1 swine flu pandemic, it took President Barack Obama millions infected and over 1,000 deaths to declare a public health emergency. In fact, when the Obama administration acknowledged the WHO's declaration of a public health emergency on April 26, 2009, there were less than 280 cases of H1N1 infection reported in the U.S., and the first confirmed death of a Mexican toddler on vacation occurred the next day, April 27th. The WHO projected 1 million plus U.S. cases on June 25 after declaring a pandemic on June 11th. Immediately after Donald Trump lost the 2020 U.S. presidential election, Kirk promoted false and disproven claims of fraud in the election. On November 5, 2020, Kirk was the leader of a Stop the Steal protest at the Maricopa Tabulation Center in Phoenix. Kirk was considered a big-name social influencer in Rudy Giuliani's communications plan to overturn the 2020 election. On the Minnesota leg of the tour on October 5, 2021, Kirk called George Floyd a scumbag. Kirk promoted several debunked claims about Floyd, such as that he was illegally counterfeiting currency and had once put a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. On Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, Kirk repeatedly promoted the false claim that the medical examiner who performed the autopsy declared Floyd had died of an overdose. Following a fact check by AFP that noted the doctor stood by the classification of Floyd's death as a homicide, corrections were added to Kirk's posts on social media. In May 2021, Kirk married Erica Kirk, née Franzwe, a businesswoman, podcaster, and philanthropist who won the Miss Arizona USA pageant competition in 2012. The couple's first child, a daughter, was born in August 2022. Their second child, a son, was born in May 2024. Kirk was an evangelical Christian. The Christian denomination to which he belonged was the Calvary Chapel Association. Prior to the early 2020s, Kirk was described as secular and a critic of religious influence on politics and the state. Later, he became a Christian nationalist. In 2021, Kirk partnered with California pastor Rob McCoy to launch TPUSA Faith to mobilize conservative Christians to vote Republican. Kirk's shift was influenced by events such as Trump's move of the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and COVID-era church closures, which he and his allies portrayed as religious persecution. Kirk advocated Christian creationism, arguing that evolution is false and that Charles Darwin has been debunked. He has debated this topic at his Prove Me Wrong table on campus, citation needed. Speaking on a podcast episode with creationist Stephen Meyer, Kirk said that he was intrigued by Meyer's argument that there was scientific confirmation for intelligent design, contrary to Darwin. He has discussed with Randy Guglielmo, the president of the Institute for Creation Research, their support for young Earth creationism on his podcast. Kirk was highly supportive of Israel. During a 2019 visit to Jerusalem, he told an audience, "I'm very pro-Israel, and my whole life I have defended Israel." In August 2025, he said, "I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel. I believe in the scriptural land rights given to Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy," and added that he would fight for Israel. Kirk often repeated pro-Israeli talking points about the Gaza war and Gaza genocide. He blamed Hamas for the deaths of civilians in Gaza and denied that Israel is starving Palestinians. Kirk did not recognize the state of Palestine He backed Republican crackdowns on the 2024 pro-Palestinian protests on university campuses. In April 2025, he dismissed the Trump administration's efforts to punish pro-Palestinian students on campus as an attack on free speech, saying, "Once anti-Semitism becomes valid grounds to censor or even imprison somebody, there will be frantic efforts to label all kinds of speech as anti-Semitic, the same way the left labeled all kinds of statements as racist to justify silencing their opposition." In May 2025, Kirk opposed a bipartisan bill to expand anti-BDS laws, which punish the boycott of Israel. He said the bill would only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the U.S. government. Kirk opposed U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel war. Although Kirk was a staunch defender of Israel, he also shared some critical views of the Israeli government. Shortly after the October 7th attacks on Israel in 2023, Kirk had promoted a conspiracy theory alleging the Israeli government knew that Hamas was going to launch the attack, and that Netanyahu allowed it to go ahead as part of a plan to remain in power. Shortly before Kirk's death, he suggested that Jeffrey Epstein had been an Israeli intelligence agent. Several Israeli government ministers, politicians, and political activists mourned Kirk's death, with many describing him as a friend of Israel, and a few linking his killing to anti-Zionists. Netanyahu said he had recently invited Kirk to Israel, while Morton Klein said Kirk had recently accepted an invitation to speak at the Zionist Organization of America's National Gala. On September 10, 2025, while on stage at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, for a TPUSA event, the American Comeback Tour, Kirk was fatally shot in the neck. The shooting took place at 12:23 p.m. MDT, 1823 UTC, around 20 minutes after the event began, in front of an audience of about 3,000 people. Immediately before being shot, Kirk was discussing mass shootings. A student asked, "Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?" And Kirk's last words before being shot were his reply, "Counting or not counting gang violence." Kirk was taken to the Timpanogos Regional Hospital in critical condition, where he was pronounced dead later that afternoon at the age of 31. FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles described the investigation as in its early stages and encouraged members of the public to come forward with information. Kirk was listed on the 2018 Forbes 30 Under 30 in Law and Policy. In May 2019, Kirk was awarded the honorary degree of Doctor of Humanities, D.Hum, from Liberty University. A day after Kirk's death, on September 11, 2025, Donald Trump announced that Kirk will be posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The world is deeply saddened to hear about the loss. Please accept our heartfelt condolences during this difficult time. Our thoughts and prayers are with you as you navigate the pain of losing someone so dear. May the love of those around you bring comfort, and may cherished memories help carry you through the days ahead. Though words can never fully ease the sorrow, please know that you are not alone and that many hearts are holding you close in love and support. Of Charlie Kirk, may your soul rest in peace